Hi, my name is Shauna Arrington. I am a PhD student, first year at UNLV School of Nursing, and I'll be presenting today my article Critique presentation, Phenomenology. I chose a study from the UK, and it's called a UK study, Menopausal and Perimenopausal Women's Biopsychosocial Experiences, Understanding of Treatment Options, and Thoughts Toward Their Future Lives. Here you'll see the abstract, but I will be going over all of that shortly, including the methods and the results and conclusions. As promised, here is the research question and purpose. My research question is, what are the lived experiences, the knowledge, future thoughts, and general understanding of perimenopause and menopausal women? And then the purpose really was to identify, consider, and analyze the experiences of perimenopausal and menopausal women, to identify participants' knowledge, their understanding of treatment options, if their treatment were undergoing any treatment options currently, and to explore their thoughts of the future, aspirations, and expectations post-menopause. So in summary, the article discussed how perimenopause and menopause can affect women in all aspects of their lives, including physically, emotionally, psychologically, cognitively. And then it also, understood that women around the world, they generally do not understand perimenopause or menopause or the impact that it can have on all their aspects of their lives. And it also demonstrates the understanding of women's lived experience, how it can grow existing evidence, and additionally help understand their thoughts regarding the future past menopause, which really there isn't a lot of data on. So, summary of methods. The sample was 4 self-identified perimenopausal or menopausal women recruited via social media campaigns. And I know what you're thinking, that's a very small sample size, but we will get to that. The age brackets were not included, but average menopause age or perimenopause is about 45 to 55, with symptoms occurring as early as 40 years old. So we can estimate the women were in between those ages. The 3 themed questions that we had, that they had, was what are the biophysical experiences of participants, including like their symptoms, their relationships, and work, and how much understanding did they have regarding their symptoms and the treatments, including where did they even get that information, and what were their positive experiences or their barriers when they inquired about menopause or support for perimenopause. And the last one was thoughts regarding what the future holds, including like any of their aspirations or emotions or opportunities that they saw. Data collection was one focus group discussion, and it was video and audio recorded. And the analysis was done using interpreted phenomenological analysis, or IPA. It was then transcribed verbatim, themed, and coded. And this method is perfect for this type of study because IPA examines the lived experience of the participants and the meanings of that. So this was an appropriate method for sure. Results, they ended up with 4 main themes because that's what the IPA does. It's trying to, even though there's only 4 people, what it's trying to do is look at the participants and identify common themes, and they were able to identify 4. So the onset and impact of symptoms was one, and generally the women spoke of how unexpected they were, and they were not expecting the severity of the symptoms and how it affected their mental health, identity, relationships, physical appearance. The second theme they noticed was the menopause and relationships. So, the women generally spoke that their symptoms predominantly were negative results between like tension in the family and their partners, and they really didn't feel supported. It led to a lot of loneliness. But it did, on the positive side, strengthen their friendships as they continued to talk to their friends about what they were going through. The third theme was the knowledge gap. A lot of participants really received little or no information regarding what to expect or when to expect these symptoms. In fact, one of the participants had never even heard of perimenopause. So they also complained of kind of, they lacked kind of validation from the healthcare providers. And some of them found that the visits weren't even helpful. So the future thoughts was the last theme, and desire to change. They really expressed a lot of concerns about cognitive decline and uncertainty of like what does postmenopause look like. And for future, they would hope that men, women, children get some perimenopause and menopause education to reduce the stigmas and increase support and open those lines of communication. But they were also optimistic about the future because the increase in mental health awareness, and as we mentioned, it can affect their mental health with depression, anxiety, all of those things. So they were a little optimistic about what holds with the future because of the mental health awareness. Implications for this study, really medical providers should receive specific perimenopause and menopause training to better assist these women. The menopause transition, what they notice is that, it's intersecting multidimensional influences. So, hormones affect the depression or affect the weight gain, and which, that affects the patient's identity. And so it's really important to take a biopsychosocial approach and not just treat the symptoms. And then normalizing menopause through conversations and exposure to narrow that gap as far as knowledge for women and for the general public, and to hopefully reduce that stigma and provide more communication. So as far as the critiques and the strength of this article, one great thing that it allowed perimenopausal and menopausal women who traditionally are underrepresented in research, able to give their voice to their experiences, their thoughts, their understandings. The article acknowledges that, like I mentioned, it emphasizes that it goes across all of the aspects of their lives, so it requires a biopsychosocial approach. The other acknowledgement is that the providers really need specific perimenopause and menopausal training. So a call for action is there. And as far as the limitations, the sample characteristics, now I know I said that there was a small sample as far as four people, but as we mentioned in IPA methods, you don't need a lot of people, but the problem with the sample was that they were all white, cisgendered females, and so we really need a variety of ethnic backgrounds to give voice to everyone. The researchers mentioned the timeline after conducting the interview and going to transcribe it, that was quite quick, and so they didn't have a lot of time for reflexivity. And the last limitation was the lack of gender diversity on the research team. All of the research team were middle-aged women who, fit that menopausal age, but there were no men on the team, and so having a diverse background to be able to give a different perception and interpretation would have been beneficial. In conclusion, as we mentioned, a knowledge gap exists for many women who are perimenopausal or menopausal. Perimenopause and menopause discussions need to happen, and the stigma needs to be removed. Perimenopause and menopause symptoms, affect women through all aspects of their lives, and they really do need to be focused on the intersections and not focusing on treatment for one symptom. And healthcare providers are in need of some perimenopause and menopause-specific training. Here are my references for you. And again, this will go over the interpretive phenomenological analysis if you were interested more in that, but I feel like that was a perfect method for this study. Thank you.